Okay, look, we're here with Lowkey. It's just before the last session of the No to Nato, No to War rally. I just want to ask you, Lowkey, what is it you think about this censorship of any anti-war voices? I mean, do you think that they've gone too far? Do you think there might be a counter to that?
The reality is that Britain, even as far back as World War I, has always sought to marginalize the anti-war voices in the world. We are round the corner from Russell Square, which is named after the family of Bertrand Russell. This was somebody who spent 6 months in prison because of his opposition to World War I. You saw people even sentenced to death during World War I for opposing the war and for refusing to kill. Some of those were excommunicated, and that was good. But we have also seen in the United States someone like Eugene Debs. Because he opposed World War I, he spent years in prison, and 1 million people voted for him to be president while he was in prison because of his opposition to World War I. In fact, you're seeing the legislation which was established at that time, the Espionage Act, to crush anti-war feeling in the US, be used against Julian Assange potentially by the US government. So in many ways, what we see today is a development on what took place before. In terms of the reality of the situation, Britain is the 5th largest economy in the world, and it is scheduled and promised to fall to the 11th largest economy in the world. That process will not be painless. The United States, of course, is the first largest economy in the world, and it's scheduled to fall below China. What Britain and the United States are making clear is that they will go out kicking and screaming. But actually, that is a return to a more natural economic equilibrium. We can't forget that when the East India Company was founded in the 1600s, Britain was a tiny percentage of the world's economy, whereas China and India were almost around 50% of the world's economy when taken together. What you saw through the hundreds of years of British colonialism and Britain occupying 14.7 million square miles of the planet was Britain seeking to deindustrialize the countries it occupied and actually wield the produce in those countries for the interests of Britain. People were kept as captive labor. They were also used as captive markets, and also the resources were used to enrich people in London. However, we do know that at that time, literally as recently as the late 1800s, the life expectancy, even in places like Bethnal Green, for people that worked in chimneys, was something like 16 years old. So what you actually saw was the elites of these countries able to enrich themselves. Now, what you've seen since the beginning of the neoliberal era was China take its place as the workshop of the world. Now, the natural consequence of that is that China is therefore the number one trading partner of most of the large economies in the world, even countries that the United States is attempting to manipulate against the Chinese. Do you think people in the European Union don't know that the United States blew up the Nord Stream pipeline? Of course they do. People are aching for a different world, a fairer world, a more even world, a more just world. And this event and others like it are merely an expression of that yearning for a different world. So I say it doesn't matter how they attempt to censor us, as the book burners of the past have found. Whenever you suppress ideas, you make it harder to justify your own arguments against those ideas. And in fact, you reveal how synthetic your arguments against those ideas actually are, because you have had to resort to such tactics.
Can't say anything better than that. You put it in a nutshell. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Great. Great to see you. Thanks.